Welcome everyone. This is Sean from Avid. Great to be here. Hope you're all doing well, and I hope you're, thus far enjoying your new year, 2026. Looks like we are the proud owners of Venezuela, or
At least
possibly,
the oil.
for the oil, or maybe
At
we're in
least the oil.
the
Maybe more.
process of acquiring Venezuela. I'm not quite sure where that stands at the moment. It's just, it depends on the latest press conference, I guess. It's kind of a TBD, but that was an interesting development over the last couple of days. I've been reading a bunch about that, but we actually have something much more important to talk about. We have Holly Berkley Fletcher here with us today, and she's a very, very interesting woman. She's led an interesting life, kind of a Renaissance woman. She's done a lot. She's the author of Missionary
Sure.
Kids, Unmasking the Myth of White Evangelicalism, sold at quality bookstores everywhere. Um, she grew up in Kenya with evangelical parents. Then she gravitated over to the academic world, became a historian, and then from there, if that wasn't enough, she became a CIA analyst for 20 years, which is something we have in common, something that really piqued my interest and got me looking at her site on Substack. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, hopefully. But spoiler alert: no secrets will be divulged in this conversation. So uh, any Russians or Chinese out there, you can just hang up now. You're not going to learn anything new. Um, and you can check out her site on Zebra Without Stripes on Substack. She's got a lot of great writing, a lot of humorous writing. It runs the gamut. It's really interesting. Politics. She does all kinds of stuff. So highly recommend that. Recommend that. And if you want to check out some of her artwork, yes, she does artwork too. You can see her artwork on zebrawithoutstripes.com. Is that right?
Yeah, I have it. That will link to the Etsy shop. So,
Okay. And I have a
yeah.
slide of some of your artwork. Maybe I'll show it later with your permission.
Sure.
Okay, so Holly, welcome to the Avid podcast. Thanks for coming on. Oh, my wife said to say Jumbo to you because she traveled in. Is that right? Swahili? Is that
Well,
not?
that's the tourist greeting,
That's a
so
tour.
it's
Okay.
not grammatically, it's not
It's not the correct.
usually.
Okay, not the right. Never
If
mind.
someone says Jumbo to you, then they're sort of being a little like, "Oh, aren't you sweet? Aren't you a sweet tourist?"
Yeah,
So,
touristy thing to say.
yeah.
Well, I'll tell her that. I'm sure she'll be pleased to hear that one.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. Um, I just wanted to walk through here a couple things about your career, how you came up, and just to start. So you were raised in Kenya by Southern Baptist evangelical parents. Can you tell us about your uprising, how it shaped your life?
My
Uh,
uprising. My uprising is going on right now. My upbringing.
okay,
You
you're
said
still in your
uprising.
uprising. Um,
My
but
uprising
I
is
mean, I was kind of
happening now.
interesting how you transitioned as a young adult, and I know you get into some of this in your book, but I mean, yeah, so it's still going on.
Yeah, my upbringing there,
Yeah.
yeah, was again as a missionary kid, and I talk about that some in the book. And but the book, I interviewed many, many other missionary kids, evangelical missionary kids, as a way of looking at white evangelicalism as a whole in America. It's because the sort of premise of the book is that missions has been since the early 19th century, missions has been at the heart of white evangelical identity, and the sort of story of missions has formed a central sort of mythology that reflects an image that white evangelicals like to tell. It's a story white evangelicals like to tell themselves, and it's very much linked, sometimes directly in individuals, but more indirectly, sort of narrative, as a narrative and as a cultural frame, to some of the Christian nationalist ideas that we're seeing in our politics right now. So that's kind of what the book is about.
Okay, and so that really ties into your subtitle, The Myths of White Evangelicalism. I mean, it
Yeah.
is really a mythology for them,
Yeah.
and
Missions
it ties
is,
back to kind of the
yeah.
evangelical movement now in America.
Yeah, it's a narrative of, sort of white American evangelicals being um God's chosen people, destined to, called to save the world and to save, and more recently, sort of save American culture, and then in more recent post-civil rights, the multicultural story, the idea that missions is part of this, building of a global church and this sort of kumbaya racial ideology, that's been a strain in the movement as well. And especially post-civil rights, it's been a story evangelicals like to tell themselves, even while they don't really deal with the issue of race. So it's a alternative racial narrative that seems enlightened but is actually distracting.
Yeah, that's interesting because kind of a neophyte on this subject, but I have read a little bit about the evangelicals. First of all, it's something that it goes further back than just the 19th century, right? It goes back pretty far when you
It
talk about, I don't
doesn't
know
go
about
back
Africa.
much further, actually.
Yeah.
Evangelicalism is an Anglo-American movement that came out of the Great Awakenings starting in the 18th century. So it's actually a very new form of Christianity. And then it was an Anglo-American movement, but it quickly became dominated and defined by Americanism. And so
Hmm.
if it's really an American form, a white American form, even though there's a lot of black evangelicals, um, there of Christianity that isn't that old actually, and yet is insistent that it is the correct form of Christianity.
Yeah, I read a little
Now you're
bit
living in
about
Florida, you're gonna have to learn about the evangelicals because
well, there's plenty
they'll
to
find
study.
you even if you don't find them.
There's plenty of cultural studies to be done out here. Trust me. Yeah,
Oh,
that might
I
be my
bet.
next. No, what I was gonna say is I just like with what I've read a little bit in the Middle East that the evangelical movement in the Middle East was very kind of, especially with the formation of Israel, and it had very profound impact on U.S. policy. So that's just in another kind of region. Um,
Yeah, it ties to
shows the
evangelical
connection.
notions of the end times, and they think the state of Israel is crucial to the second coming of
Yeah,
Jesus,
yeah.
basically. So,
And aside, I also another similarity between us. I grew up Mormon, so I was like,
oh,
not
okay.
that I
Well,
grew
there
up
you
in
go.
Kenya, but I understand some. Yeah, because I very much
Yeah,
was told when Israel's reconstituted, then the end of days are coming, and then we're going into a kumbaya moment and all. Yeah. So that I experienced that mythology.
yeah, yeah. Mormons have their own mythologies. So,
Yeah, we won't delve too deep into that, but just an aside. Okay, so sounds like a fascinating book. I encourage everyone out to go out there, get it and read it. And it goes on that sounds, but do you give anecdotes about your life growing up? And I mean, I'm sure
yeah,
there's a lot of that.
there's a lot of anecdotes in the book, some about me, but also from all of the interviews that I did. I have
Yeah, and it
sort of
sounds like you're
vignettes.
actually it's a bit more it's somewhat of a scholarly book where you're trying to analyze
It's
this
technically a
phenomenon.
trade publication, but I incorporated a lot of history in particular because I'm a historian. So,
Yeah,
and I think the history is really illuminating. Like if you look at the history of this movement, it really demonstrates how far back these narratives started and their original sort of purpose and meaning, and then, how that's carried forward over time. So,
interesting. Yeah. Okay, and that kind of segues. So when you gravitated, moved into the academic world for your first kind of part of your career, you focused on the 19th century temperance movement as an academic.
yeah, that's not really worth talking about.
But I mean, were you was that kind of an offshoot of just like your interest in religious studies, or was
Well, actually, if I would do it over again, I probably would have more directly studied American religion and American evangelicalism and history. I think I thought at the time, because at the time I was evangelical, so I think I thought that was sort of too close to home or too because it wouldn't be of interest to sort of the secular academia. Of course, it's of a lot of interest, especially now, because whether or not you are an evangelical or whether or not you understand evangelicalism, the movement has had a very powerful influence on American history and on our current politics. And so, but at the time I just thought, oh, that's too niche or whatever. So I did, if I could have done it again, I might have even studied the missionary, movement or something like that. But no, I got into temperance mainly because my main interest was the Civil War and
Hmm.
the cultural impact of the Civil War.
Yeah.
And so the temperance movement is actually one of the largest, most successful, most longest sustained reform movements in American history. And so it's something that carried forward, from the pre-Civil War era into the post-Civil War era. And so I thought it would be a good um, sort of microcosm to look at in turn to try to understand the cultural impact of the war. But it's
And
not it's not that interesting, I'm sure.
but it tied into the larger abolition movement, right? These were all kind of like
So
reformist,
that will
progressive reformists of their
no,
day, or
so it had different strains. I mean, that's one of the books I wrote a book on that too, so an academic book. So that's one of the books things that it discusses is that in the pre-Civil War, temperance was actually highly contested because and much like Christianity actually and evangelical Christianity in the North, it became tied to a more progressive vision of society and an impulse to perfect society and to make it better. And it was linked in its more radical forms with women's rights and abolitionism. Um, but in the South, it became, and so did evangelical Christianity, it became a way to shore up racial hierarchy and the power of the white planter class. So
Hmm.
it was highly contested as everything was in the pre-Civil War era. And then after the Civil War, as with so many things in the post-Civil War era, temperance became a vehicle of sort of reconciliation and coming together and shoving race and racial equality issues and justice issues more in the background. So it became
Interesting.
something every, reformer, North and South, Christians and, kind of reformists could come together on and agree on for different reasons so that they didn't, as a way of sort of ignoring the larger issue of
The
racial
larger
justice.
friction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I'm gonna have to pick up your first book and read it.
Oh, please don't. It's very boring.
I saw one of your other you held it up and you said maybe three people, but that's academic books in
Yeah,
general, right?
it's
Yeah,
it's
it's
an
not a hit on
academic.
you. I'm sure it's fascinating.
No, yeah, it's not that well written. I'm a
Oh,
much better writer now than I was then. So,
I'm getting closer to that. So after your academic career, you shifted to the CIA. Uh, Tell us about your experience there in general terms. I mean, you worked for an analyst your entire career there,
yeah, we could of course go off on various
as far as we can possibly.
insidery conversations.
I was
Um
going to ask you if you had any good chord battles, like if only that's a bit, all
Chord battle, of course. Probably
all
with you, and I didn't know it. You're probably on an email chain somewhere along the way because
Maybe I should
this
explain that when you're everything you write, and then this is just general stuff. I'm not going to get any particulars, but everything you write, it's like it goes through, it's like making sausage, and it just goes through this excruciating process, bureaucratic process. And the first step is that everyone has to read off on an agreement with it, and it can just be like, I'll just leave it at
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I feel like the longer I was there, the chord battles got
it
less,
did. It got out. The
but the
culture.
editing got worse, so it like kind of
Well,
flipped.
we used to joke that like so many times like you get pieces back like wait, this went full circle. It's the exact same piece that I just
Exactly.
spent
No,
three
the
months
the
and it went
editing process
completely.
became the world of the absurd, like an Alice
It
in
it
Wonderland upside down experience. And honestly, that's the major reason I left, not Trump. I decided I was
okay,
leaving
it wasn't
before
Trump. That's the chord
2024.
process was worse than Trump. That's saying a lot.
It wasn't the court, it was the editing process
The
and
editing.
just the mushrooming of bureaucracy and the disempowerment of analysts. So, but that's another whole thing. We won't go
Yeah,
there. That's
we
very
will. Yeah, because
insidery.
we'll spend 7 hours on the.
I applied to CIA because I needed a job. I was moving here to DC because my husband was already here And yeah, and I knew an academic job would be very difficult to come by when you're, especially, it's difficult to come by under the best of circumstances, but when you're place bound, forget it, like
Mm.
you're not going to get an academic job, at least not a full-time one. So I decided, and I wasn't like a that dedicated of an academic. So I decided to pivot and I just sort of started looking for all kinds of jobs. And I just applied on the website as I figured with my background in Africa and I had studied African history a little bit. So I thought that would be the best fit for me. And yeah, so they hired me and it was a good career. I'm sure lots of ups and downs and joys and frustrations. I worked on Africa mostly the whole time, but I did, we all do rotational assignments. So I actually taught our analytic training program for
Hmm.
3 years, CAP.
Oh, great.
What CAP
Yep.
are you, Sean?
People always remember that. And people always ask me that. I don't even remember.
You don't remember
That's
your
how, that
CAP?
says a lot about I was very early. I came in '03, and people asked me.
Oh, that was very early in the CAP
Yeah, I was
days.
part of
So,
the post 9/11 just hiring.
yeah.
And I think that's the only reason I actually give with my background got
Well,
it.
they were still in that, and I came on
Yeah,
in
that continued on for
2006,
yeah.
and so I don't know that they would have hired me.
What
We
number were
all
you?
wonder. I was Cap 62, so
Yeah, I think I was I don't know why. That's why my brain is. I just like
that's okay.
I have no idea.
It's sometimes it's best forgotten. Some people had good experiences, and some people had not. Our Cap class was kind of crazy, but I will say that my very best friend in the whole world, well, one of my two very best friends of the whole world, I met on the first day, my first day at the agency, and he was in my Cap
Oh,
class,
that's
and
great.
and
That's
we're best
still
friends. He's like an uncle to my kids,
that's
and
wonderful.
so we're still best friends.
Yeah,
So
because I didn't really connect with anyone in my cap class. I was kind of like an older
yeah,
guy. I
and then
just come
he
out of the
worked. We
I,
worked together briefly too. He was on my team for a little while. I brought him over to work Africa, and so we had a ball. And then he moved on to other
that's
things.
awesome. That's one of the
You
things I
might know
found.
him. Well, offline, I'll tell you his name and see if you know him because
Okay.
he's done a lot of different things.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
probably do because I was around a lot just long enough to
Yeah.
learn a lot of the names and faces. But
Anyway, I did that, and then I actually did a stint at OPA during COVID. So I didn't actually
mhm,
do end up doing much. OPA obviously didn't. There wasn't much to do during COVID, but I
yeah,
had a good year or so before the lockdown at OPA, where I basically wrote for the internal publication, reported and wrote for the internal publication, which was super fun.
yeah.
Um, so so that's and then I went back to Africa and that's pretty much my career. So,
Well, it sounds like a great career.
hmm,
Is all
look, I've got my
yeah, I
CIA
should have
water
brought
bottle.
my my yeah, that was the last thing I did before I left the building. I ran to the gift shop and bought a bunch of just swag for my friends and
Swag.
family.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, well, having just survived it, I think is, sometimes a victory for people who have gone through. And I saw a lot of people come in and out of there and kind of do the whole 3 to 5 years and then, no, this isn't for me. So kudos to you on having gotten through that part of your career.
Yeah. Yeah. So since then I've just been honestly, I again, when I decided to leave, I didn't know who was going to win the election. I feared Trump would win the election, but when he did win the election, and then when it became very clear early on in the second term how bad it was going to be, I basically I've done everything I can to do as a democracy activist, and that includes, throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall, just going to a lot of protests, volunteering for the Spanberger campaign, doing all of the things that ordinary people can do, postcards to voters, all the things I was barred from the Hatch Act or had
Yep.
reluctance to do in the Hatch Act. So I've done a lot. I've used my art to do advocacy and raise money for various causes. The Substack, obviously. And then, but then this year, now I'm sort of, in the last few months, I've gotten some more formal opportunities, to contribute to the cause. So I have done some work with Principles First, um, which is a pro-democracy. It started as a kind of, most of my connections are through the sort of never Trump Republican world, but now it's morphed into, a lot of them are now full-fledged Democrats, so it's kind of become a big tent pro democracy blob. And
Hmm.
so I have a lot of friends and connections in there. So I've done some work with Principles First. I have, which does sort of gatherings, meetings, summits. They have a big summit every year, which is coming up in February. But then throughout the year, they're basically putting on various dinners and gatherings, trying to allow people all over the country to engage, meet new people, form communities around democracy, and just sort of encouraging people, particularly out there in places where maybe they don't have those communities, like Florida, Sean. So.
Okay, I've got my
And
work
then
cut out for me here, I'm telling you.
and then
I mean,
similarly, I'm a fellow with the Pulaski Institution, which is based in Arkansas.
oh,
And
okay, that's a challenge.
they sort of do pro-democracy building and study and all of that in the flyover country. The heartland is what we prefer to call it.
Yeah.
And then I just got added to the board of Home of the Brave, which is a project of I don't know if you remember Republican Voters Against Trump, that campaign in previous election cycles,
Yes.
where they collected testimonials and
Yes, I saw that. I
put
saw their website.
and cut
Yeah.
ads. So now the new project is Home of the Brave, same people behind it, and they're collecting testimonials from people who have something basically to tell stories of, specific tangible stories of harm by Trump policies, or there's some, former US government people that have contributed to talk about what they saw working in the government. If you want to do a testimonial, Sean, we would love to have you do that.
I do one
Um,
in a heartbeat because yeah, and I
I-
have a story to tell
oh,
100%.
wonderful. Please,
Yeah.
let's talk
Oh,
more about that.
okay. Well, I'm
I
in
don't know about
100%.
you, Sean. I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here.
Please do.
And I try not
That's
to
why
be
I brought you
judgment.
here. That's why.
I try not to be judgmental because I understand there's so many factors and considerations that go into people deciding, and I'm not talking about people still in government. They're obviously constrained. And I support
Yep.
people's choice to stay and to try to, well, just a lot of people just need to take care of their families
Yep.
and their livelihoods, and
Yep.
there's a lot of reasons to say, but also, there's a lot of areas of the government that where you're not sort of asked to compromise yourself on a routine basis, and you're doing important work that needs to go on, and you need your skills and expertise are needed. So people who decide to stay in the government in all of this, assuming they aren't asked to violate the Constitution or, do something really egregious, which some people are unfortunately, I think, being asked to do that. Um, I support them 100%. I'm grieved at how they've been treated in the last year. It's been so upsetting to see and to hear from friends how they've been treated and the things that they've been through. And I just think it's just an outrage how federal workers have been treated. So if you're still in the government, I support you 100%. I don't expect you to go to protests. I expect you to keep protect yourself and to do what you need to do within the bounds of the law, to do what you need to do. However, the people that have left, from my former colleagues who have left, and particularly those who don't, are have retired, maybe don't need the money, can afford to take some risks. And I've seen so few of them say a peep or go to a protest or
I,
do anything. And I have to say, I try not to be
yep.
judgmental because, again, everybody has their considerations. But I'm like, what the hell are you doing with your life?
I've seen a lot of that.
And it's
That's,
so disappointing because, I thought we were people of principle and of mission and of oath to the Constitution. And I've seen how that's can be translated in various ways to keep your head down and just, go with the flow. And I find it very disappointing. And again, I know like if you have a good reason not to do that, you have a child that with special needs and you need to get another high paying job that doesn't want you to speak out, whatever, whatever. There's a lot of different reasons. But there's a lot of people who are just doing nothing and you know not not using their knowledge and their expertise that they've gleaned working on as a CIA analyst on Africa. Like my whole job was aimed at you building democracy in Africa.
Yeah.
That was US policy.
Yeah.
Well, the first Trump administration, they weren't that concerned about it. Now they're definitely not concerned about it. But for
Yeah.
most of the time that I worked for, that was US policy. And I grew up under a dictator and I saw my country that I grew up in democratize and then have some major setbacks but still the trajectory has been good, and that makes me so proud and gratified. They have an election next year that I'm worried about, but you know, I've seen this process and I've seen people do better in their lives and thrive because of democracy growing in Kenya. And yeah, so I'm just like, and I know a lot of us, that was US policy, like the guiding force of US policy, all around the world. And to see people like not take away from that, like, hey, you can recognize when democracy's under threat, and now it's under threat here, and you have a lot of expertise on this matter, and you're just gonna sit home. Like, I don't understand it, to be
I
frank
don't, I
with
was
you.
just,
And it
so I've been, and this goes beyond just former government workers as well. I was thinking the other day about, so we have the Trump fanatics, fine, and the MAGA type people. You're never gonna kind of fix that. Oh, maybe you can, eat or like pick around the margins of that. But I've done more and more people who I've done more and more thinking about people who maybe just casually voted for Trump or just kind of like and are going about their lives as if this is just politics as usual when it's not. Our democracy is clearly in a crisis. Therefore, where do you stand on this? What are you going to do about it? And just to see people just carrying on like it's like,
Yeah,
you
and it's
know,
one thing
it's
it's
just
one thing for
astounding to
like a
me.
ordinary like, manager of an old Navy or whatever in Oklahoma to not be able to recognize this for what it is
But it's
and to
pretty
be more.
stark, right? I mean, what we're seeing out there, I
Okay,
mean,
but that's one thing, a sort of ordinary person who doesn't, but it's another thing entirely for someone who has spent years studying
true,
authoritarianism,
true.
promoting democracy, seeing
Yeah,
the intelligence community,
I
understanding,
know.
hello,
Trust me.
understanding the threat of
Yeah.
Russian
I went,
aggression.
yeah, because I went through a very similar, and again, I won't too much about my story, but same thing. I went years, like we're building democracy in the Middle East, and we're fighting for this, literally. Like people are dying and fighting and dying for this. And then over the years, all of a sudden, when as those wars started winding down and Trump started coming up, all of a sudden I'm saying, wait a minute. We were fighting for democracy in the Middle East. All of a sudden, just almost in an instant, our democracy's in trouble. Like it was just the strangest evolution, and that was what brought me kind of to where I am today. Just saying, for years, just sitting and thinking and saying, I cannot just sit on my hands at this
Yeah,
moment. Whatever,
yeah.
even if it's a small minor thing, me spouting off on Substack or whatever,
You have to try,
you got to try. And I
Yeah.
just really think I do believe in the human kind of tendency, if you can call it, or just like kind of like the zeitgeist, or if more people like the environment, the general environment, when people think that things are normal and it's okay to be, like kind of like leaning towards authoritarian, they'll just go along with it. But if they sense that more and more people are not okay with that, I think that makes a difference. So I just think a lot. I've been doing a lot of thinking about the little things that you can do to signal that this is not okay and normal. So
Absolutely. I have lost some friends
I
in
have
recent
too, or
years.
like
I
really
try
have
not to,
strained. Yeah,
yeah, I try not to be personally hostile or, I try to be kind and respectful and like civil, basically. But I will not compromise my level of urgency and panic, and I will not sort of um gloss over the truth of this moment. And yeah, so I hope I bother people, I hope
That's
that
what I hear.
I hope
Yeah.
to get under people's skin
That's
and
that's where
get
I
and
keep I just like if you have to break some glass, so be it. This is the moment. This is not
yeah, this
politics
is
as
it.
normal. And like
This
5 years
is
ago when people were speaking about politics, it's kind of like, well, no, go back 10 years. And then
sure.
you're kind of like, that's
Yeah.
annoying. But where we're at
Yeah.
now is a totally different place. And you
Totally different place, and I'm
yeah,
not going to shut up about it. And that includes to my former colleagues who I know some of them are have been offended by me, and think I'm being judgmental. And I'm just like, fine, so
fine.
be it. I think
Yeah.
every one of us who has anything to offer, and that includes expertise and perspectives that are more informed and unique, than others, you have to speak out, you have to speak out. Maybe it won't do any good, but you have to do it. You have
Yeah.
to do it just for your own self. I don't know about you, but of course, you look about my age. I'll just judge. Are you a
No,
Gen
you look
Xer?
much younger. You look much, much younger than me.
No, well, I have the Zoom. You need to do
Okay.
some, the
We're coming
Zoom
off the
airbrushing.
holidays too, because I'm a little haggard, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway,
this
you look about my age.
okay.
So I'm sure you have older relatives in your life who were adults in this during the civil rights movement. And, I don't know about yours, but mine, they all claim they supported, but they don't have, there's zero evidence that they did a damn thing, you know? And
No,
I'm like,
mine's even further. I come from a very conservative, like Southern roots culture that just that never, much more like, I mean, there wasn't much of a discussion about the civil rights. And when
oh
it
no,
was,
same with me
yeah,
actually, but
yeah.
of course nowadays, everybody claims now to have supported civil rights. And it's like, well, what did you do? And
Yeah,
this is our moral moment. And I just think I just want my kid. I've got two teenagers, and
I've heard
I don't want any doubt in their minds, what their parents thought and did during this
during
moment.
this
I
moment.
don't want if I end up having grandkids, I don't want any doubt for any of them. I want the record to be very clear because this is not a drill. This is history being made. This is a pivot point in history. And it's like, what are you doing with your life if you're not doing something about this? I just honestly don't know. And if that's judgmental, then I'm really sorry.
No,
There, rant over.
you're preaching to the choir,
Yeah.
100%. It sounds like you went through a very similar, probably earlier than me, but like intellectual evolution on how, because I mean, I do have my moments. For me, it's just like, I don't really, as an analyst who enjoys looking at foreign countries and regions and studying languages. And, I'm actually not that into politics. It's just not what I really truly enjoy. But I did feel like at this moment, and again, had several conversations with my wife, and I've got to do something. I've got to,
Good for you. Good for
yeah.
you. Yeah, this isn't politics. This is authoritarianism.
Yeah,
It's not
it's
politics.
beyond, you're right. It's beyond normal politics. And it's
Yeah,
similar to the world in the 1930s where camps were being drawn up. And it's like, where do you stand on this? Like,
that's
if you're
right.
standing on the sidelines, I mean, there's a clear-cut moral issue here, a big one for which way the world's going to go. And I'm sorry, like, we have to fight for democracy at this moment. There's no question in my mind. So
Yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
leave it at that. So that's great. Thank you for your rant. I think that just looking here if there's anything else I want to ask you. I mean, I know you still travel and you still go back to Africa. It's got a place in your heart, right? You travel back there and
Yeah, I actually have started this summer I'm taking my second tour group through Kenya.
my wife and I
So,
might want to join one of those. So just yeah,
oh yeah, we
I'll
still
keep an
have
eye
a
on.
couple spots for June if you want to
Okay.
join the June one this year, but hopefully it'll be a yearly thing. 2027 might be a little bit different because again, we want to avoid the Kenyan election in August and its aftermath, so I'm a little bit worried about that. But but yeah, we're going in June this year, and I have a good friend, a Kenyan friend who, started as a safari driver. We met him years ago. He was our safari driver through another company, and he has built his own company and is his own boss now. And so we are supporting his business and his, family's livelihood, and also, showing people this beautiful country that I love so well, and that he loves so well. He loves, I mean, the delight of you see for him and the other drivers that he hires, um, to show off their country is, you can see the delight and the pride, and the justified pride, because their um environmental heritage and the animals that are under their care and the beautiful land and all of those things are, and the warmth of the culture. I mean, I've rarely been to a friendlier, more hospitable
Mm,
place. Um, so they're proud of all of that, and it gives them a lot of joy to share that with others, and it gives me a lot of joy. So yeah, we have a June trip, and we'll hope to make this at least a yearly thing, if not a twice yearly thing.
that's great. That's
Not a
great.
moneymaker. Nothing I do makes much money. So
Nah, well, welcome to the club.
he gets all the profit. I get my trip comped, which is worth it to me. And I get to go home, as I still think of it. And but he gets all the profit. So
That's awesome. Um, yeah, we'll see. Maybe we can sign up for one of those in the near future. But again, I'm retired and I just enjoy my free government travel, but now I have to pay for my travel, so that's a little bit
yeah, that's why this scheme gets me going back, without on a at a low cost or no cost to myself. So
yeah, that's awesome. I put one of your pieces of art. Can you see it? Is it
I
up?
can only see the top of it.
Oh, God.
Um,
Okay, I knew I was going to
so I
screw
don't
this up.
I don't know how to
All
work
right.
that, but anyway, people
Yeah,
can go to the
go to the
website.
site. She does really, really good artwork. It's got African motifs, and you use a lot of traditional, you use like fabric patterns, and oh,
Yeah, it's
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 interesting.
collage, it's fabric collage. So
It's awesome. Okay, well, Holly, it was really, really nice to have you on and talking to you today. I really enjoyed it. I admire your stance on what's going on in the country,
same.
and
I'm so glad you're out and speaking out.
I'm out. I'm going to keep doing so. I thought I had one more question. I don't know. That's it. No, no, I'm just out on Substack, and if I can push this and grow my organization, do even if it's just a loose network of like-minded, that's a lot of what you see out there. And hopefully we've got a long 3 years ahead of us, so more to come. But
Yeah,
please stay in
yeah,
the fight and appreciate everything you're doing.
yeah.
Okay, so that was Holly Berkeley Fletcher, and you just to plug your book one more time, you can read her book, Missionary Kids: Unmasking the Myth of White
I can't reach it.
Evangelicalism.
I'm
Yeah, yeah,
trying
yeah.
to, but
Please, I
it's
didn't have a
back
chance to
there.
pick it. You have one? There it is.
There.
It's out there, and it sounds very interesting. I'm going to pick up a copy. Didn't have a chance for this interview, but I'm going to run out and give me a copy. And please take care. And this right here is Avid American Vets in Defense of Democracy. You can see my Substack at Avid Democracy. That's AVDD. I'm sorry, AVD Democracy, all one word, substack.com. So please get in touch if you want to check out our site. And thank you very much, Holly, for talking with us today.
Yeah, thank you.